Radhe. A spiritual good morning to one and all. Mummy and I are here to record our recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita study session in our continuing journey of chapter 6.
Radhe Radhe.
Sharing the screen, we'll go ahead and look at what was covered today. We got through chapter 6, verses 16, 17, 18, and 19. Of course, following after some quiz questions. So you'll see those when you get the material via the community class page. Description below has information on how to access that material. So please do take a look at that. And now we'll get into today's 4 verses. Chapter 6, verse 16. Buffets are for weak ends. Mummy, recitation for you.
Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantam anashnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrato cha naiva charjuna.
So chapter 6, verse 16, overall, the 4 verses we covered today make a lot of easy sense to all people, regardless of their familiarity with yoga and spiritual practices. Yet, often this kind of wisdom and advice is something many of us will overlook because it's very easy to get swayed by the desires of our senses. So here in chapter 6, verse 16, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that if you eat too much or too little, or if you sleep too much or too little, then you cannot attain success in yoga. The idea being that really we need to maintain our bodies as well with proper exercise, yogasanas, pranayam, and a very healthy and nutritious diet. Because that body, all said and done, we're trying to attain yoga with God, that union we seek. But the body is that mechanism, the vehicle of our souls that helps us perform all of our spiritual activities. Therefore, if we just ignore the body, then that is going to become a hurdle and a challenge to our spiritual journeys. Swamiji's commentary provides some very helpful examples through shlokas from the Ayurvedic text Charak Samhita, as well as from the Ramayana stating that if you ignore the body, then you can't really do justice to the Vedas. And then also from the Ishopanishad, we had an interesting discussion. Bilji brought up a nice question and a good point there. Really here talking about how we should not focus only on just material science or just spiritual science. The contrast presented is rather, stark and eye-opening. But again, the idea again is really about balance and moderation. And perhaps, as we noted, God seated inside us. If we do not take care of the body, then we're probably providing pain to God himself. Mummy, over to you.
Yeah, basically, balance is the fundamental word in our life. And I remember in my home science book in class 9th, the first line of the book was Bhojan Jeevan ke liye hai, na ki Jeevan Bhojan ke liye. Means you eat to live, not live to eat. So basically, a balanced diet word was introduced to me at that young age. And that has been very helpful throughout life. Krishna is telling us right here that how you make a good package for yourself for day-to-day living. Basically, when you make it with some yogasana, some pranayam, some walk, some exercise, right amount of food, right amount of sleep, and right amount of recreation. So with that, don't get into unnecessary austerities or overly do the austerities. Be in balance, and that is that is how you take good care of your body and then automatically get attached to God. So with that, we'll move to verse number 17. Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha.
So chapter 6, verse 17, just building up on the catchphrases, the previous verse, and now this one, weekends are for buffets, really just talking about a balance and moderation. And here, as we now see more and more from chapter 6, verse 16 into this chapter 6, verse 17, we're talking about the cultivation of more spiritual practices. So yes, do enjoy a spiritual buffet. Occasionally, there's going to be a material buffet as well, but balance is very, very important. And especially if one doesn't get enough time during weekdays, given work or other commitments, then weekends perhaps are when one can spend more time in these devotional aspects. So here again, Sri Krishna builds up from chapter 6, verse 16 and says, however, but those who are balanced, those who are temperate in eating and recreation and work and sleep, then they can get rid of sorrows and they can in fact be practicing yoga. So again, overall, quite self-explanatory. In terms of the commentary, saw a nice rhyme of 3 Sanskrit words. There is bhog, rog, and yog. We want to try to avoid the first 2, where bhog here specifically refers to the engagement of sensual pleasures. So again, whatever our material senses desire. This is again a different use of the word bhog, opposite, different from what we make as an offering, that prasad, that sacrifice, bhog that is given to God, to Maharaji, and so on. So bhog, we want to avoid in this case, in terms of sensual pleasures. Rog, that's disease, we want to avoid that as well. We therefore seek the third rhyming word, which is yog, as always, union with God. The example given, very nice imagery here. Gautam Buddha, the story of him practicing extreme austerities. Just as Mummy said earlier, you don't want to practice an over extra amount of austerities where then it impedes your own progress and your own bodily health. So what seemed to be perhaps illiterate village women, they were passing by singing a song, they had a tanpura, the stringed Indian musical instrument, and there was wisdom that Buddha was able to get from there. Practice austerities, tighten those strings of the tanpura, but in moderation, in balance, not so much that the tanpura breaks or the body breaks or gives way. So that again will be an impediment to spiritual progress. Also helpful is the example from Benjamin Franklin's diary, 13 virtues that he wrote. First one, very enlightening, temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. Several others are mentioned in his diary. You're welcome to check them out at your own time. The last one, again, very spiritual, humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. So again, that is from Benjamin Franklin. Mommy, over to you.
So I will want you all to look at this important word in this verse, that is yuktahar viharasya. Yuktahar viharasya means yuk means moderate, ahar means eating, and viharasya means recreation. So basically Krishna is saying make a balance. It's not that you don't do recreation, you just be sitting in tapasya all the time, that you are doing penance all the time, or you are doing austerities all the times. No, you have a balance of recreation also, and you have a balance of the food, the amount you eat. So basically, the balance world, equilibrium in your life, that is very, very important. With that, we move to verse number 18. यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा.
So chapter 6, verse 18, yearning for yoga. Here really talking about how we would like to redirect our material senses and the objects that they desire, instead to channel that into seeking yoga. So Sri Krishna states in chapter 6, verse 18, that with thorough discipline, such yogis, we're talking about vigilant yogis, practicing yoga, practicing meditation, they learn to withdraw the mind from selfish cravings. And then, very nice word here, rivet, attach it on the unsurpassable good of the self. That's when you can be considered to be in yoga, and again, free from all the yearnings of the senses. Instead, again, as the catchphrase goes, one can yearn for yoga. Simple question that Swamiji asks in the commentary, which often comes up from spiritual practitioners, is that when do you think or when do you know that your practice of yoga is complete? And the answer provided by Swamiji is that when you're controlled chitta, the mind, remember the four levels of functioning or operation of the mind, not four entities. So the same single mind, in this case, the subconscious mind, the chit, when that is 24/7 fixed and focused exclusively on God, on the Supreme, then we know that we have weaned off or detached ourselves from material desires. And that is getting us closer and closer to yukt, or that perfect union with God. Swamiji gives a preview that will come up many weeks later at the end of this chapter. So we'll hold off till then, but we'll get to see who Sri Krishna describes as the highest yogis out of a certain group of people he talks about. Mummy?
Yeah, basically Krishna is saying, these words are coming directly from Krishna, and Krishna is saying that you control your mind and focus it exclusively on Krishna. And Krishna considers those yogis of the highest level, whose minds are disciplined and whose minds are absorbed in Krishna, and who have a resolute faith in devotion to Krishna. So those yogis are considered to be the highest of all. So let's move to verse number 19. Yatha deepo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. From this verse, I'm going to take a very important word, yata chittasya. Yata chittasya means whose mind is disciplined. So Krishna is stressing a lot on balance, regulation, and discipline. So Gagan can explain to us what does this verse mean.
Yeah, chapter 6, verse 19, last one for today. Catchphrase being, it's a breeze without the breeze. Here we're referring to meditation as Sri Krishna himself describes, and really talking about how it is much easier, much simpler without the breeze or the wind, metaphorically talking about the instability that comes from winds of desire, the distractions of the material world. So meditation is a breeze without the breeze. The simile given, the translation given by Sri Krishna is, just as a lamp in a windless place does not flicker, so the disciplined mind of a yogi remains steady in meditation on the self. So as Mummy mentioned, yata chittasya, whose mind is disciplined. So with this translation here also, Sri Krishna is very precise. He talks about the fact that you need a disciplined mind as a yogi. Only then it is analogous to a lamp in a windless place, which then will not flicker. Therefore, the yogi will be steady. Sthita Prajna, for instance, comes to mind way back from chapter 2. So again, really the idea here is trying to be not swayed or distracted by the winds of the desires that our material senses have. Again, that happens with a lot of control and practice. So with a lot of disciplining of the mind, then a yogi can be stable and continue to focus efforts on meditation on God as that supreme goal alone.
Yeah, so basically it's the thing that how you control your mind and then you be disciplined. And with that disciplined mind, then you are not attracted by the distractions of this world, this material world. And the mind, the controlled mind then stays on God only all the time. And it gets into that habit. Automatically, when your mind is controlled, your senses are then under control. And it becomes a very conducive environment for mind to be attached to God. I hope that helps to understand these 4 verses, which are directly told by Krishna to Arjun and through Arjun to the whole mankind, how to maintain ourselves, this body, which is a vehicle for our soul. And we have to understand, yes, that we are a soul. At the same time, this body is the carrier. So we have to take care of both of them. And the body is temple of God, because in the heart region, God resides. And once we take care of body, and with our controlled mind, we can take care of our thoughts also, and that is how we get attached to God. With that, I hope it helps to explain these 4 verses.
And in fact, that attachment would be a nice, helpful word for us to take away in English, the enthralled union with God. So captivated by God, but also really understanding the moral power of that devotion and attachment to the Supreme. We shall meet next week, Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. Till then, please continue your spiritual journeys and hope the learning is wonderful. We take your leave. Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.